Hello, good morning and welcome to the Star Ghana Joy News Women Rising. And this morning, we turn our spotlight to one of the most crucial conversations shaping Ghana's economic future, women's access to land and credit. Well, women in Ghana drive our economy in powerful ways. They own more than a third of all businesses and lead most of our micro and small enterprises, yet their full potential remains very locked behind long-standing systematic barriers, from customary land tenure arrangements and restrictive inheritance practices to structural limitations in our financial sector. Many women, especially in rural communities, still struggle to secure the very resources they need to grow and thrive. And that's why the Women Rising program is conveying this dialogue to unpack the root causes of these barriers, share practical experiences from civil society, government and academia, and highlight innovative solutions that can truly shift the landscape. And today, we'll explore what it will take to expand women's ownership of productive resources, strengthen their economic participation, and ensure equitable access to opportunities that support sustainable national development. You want to stay with us, especially with Engage, our experts panel, and move the national conversation forward, because when women rise, Ghana, of course, rises with them. Remember that this show is brought to you by Star Ghana Foundation. We're back for a panelist and a discussion. You want to stay with us. Thank you for staying with us, and I'm happy that you're staying tuned because this is a very important conversation. And of course, to unpack it and to help us find some practical solutions in studio, we've got Raymond Danso. He is Portfolio Manager, Rise to Services, Star Ghana Foundation. Of course, this sits very much on their lap. And also Dr. Shelter Gati. She is researcher at the Center for Gender and Advocacy as well, University of Ghana. And of course, we have Nana Ama-Ira, founder and executive director, Colandef, of course, and Juliana Bema Edubofo. She is acting head, Women Entrepreneurship Development Directorate. Thank you so much. And of course, we've got more people who would help us find solutions this morning. And I'd like to draw your attention when I introduce you. Please give me a wave. You're definitely seated in front here. I've got Irene Asari. She is former BBC Director, HR. Thank you for joining us today. And of course, I've got Dorcas Gakpeto. She would be joining us a bit later. And well, I'd like to also acknowledge everybody who made it to the studio today, the students. It's a very women conversation, but we like it when the men join us to drive the conversation. It brings it to the fore as well. So you want to give me a wave. Hello, my students. Yes, my name is Emefa Akosi-Adete, and I'm excited to be the one piloting this conversation. I'm the captain for the ship. You have a question, I'm happy to let you ask. If you have any contribution, I'm happy to as well let you ask. What we have done this morning is we've divided it into two sections. We'll go to the fundamental problem, why women have very difficulty in actually having access to credit and land. Of course, you can have all the fine ideas, but if you don't have the credit, if you don't have that financial strength behind you, the land as well, your dream is just as nothing as well. When we are done tackling the fundamentals, we'll definitely also find some solutions. So you joining us this morning, our first discussion will be how we'll be breaking the barriers to access credit and land for women. Then a little later, we shall go into the second discussion, driving women's entrepreneurship and exclusive growth. And of course, because this conversation sits very much with Star Ghana, and they have been doing a lot of work, it's only appropriate that we start the conversation. We'll now go to some data. We've got a doctor who do so much research. We'll put some data to the conversation so that you don't just think that we've just come up with a theme. And for the Women Rising conversation, put them in blocks. And every year when we tackle one at a time, collectively we'll find some solutions. So Raymond, I'll come to you first of all. In your findings, in all of this work that you've been doing, Raymond, tell me really what has been that major challenge why women, especially in the rural communities, we're not excluding those who are in the urban communities, of course, but most of them, why they still have a challenge in accessing land and credit?
Thank you very much. So, as you rightly said, Star Ghana Foundation, a Center for Active Citizenship, civil society strengthening and promoting local philanthropy. As part of our theory of change, we believe that if citizens are empowered and informed, they will demand accountability, hold duty bearers and government accountable. And by default, we are going to have a society that is just, equitable, and democratic. Now, one of our flagship programs, which is the Action for Voice and Inclusive Development, and that is where we focus on economic empowerment. And essentially, our focus is on dismantling the systemic barriers relative to rights, voice, participation in local governance, but also public services. What we have seen over the years, from 2022 up until now, is that indeed in the communities that we serve, and these are communities in Northeast, Upper East, along the Eastern region, Middle Belt, entirely across the entire country. And our target population really is about the rural women, smallholder farmers, the full-bay communities. We also work with civil societies at the national and local level, including youth. And what we have seen is that a lot of the women, rural women, who actually are into micro or small-scale businesses lack access to land. Of course, land is very primary and key in the local communities. It really serves as a collateral. And what we have seen is that there is actually a lack of access to the right to own land and to control land. And of course, if you don't own land and control land, how do you get access to land and be able to use it for economic activities and other diversified interventions? And what we have seen is that, one, there's a patriarchal culture. And so most lands are owned by, kinship or family heads or clan heads, or for that matter, landowners who are typically male figures. And I think culturally, there's not even an appetite to even transfer land in those communities to female. And so it's very difficult. I mean, one of the ways that a female will probably get access to land is either through marriage, or whether you have a son who has access to land, or if you are, of course, in the marriage, then you can have restricted access to some piece of land for your agricultural purposes and other purposes. And this fundamentally has been challenging for the women. We do know that if you have land, apart from the fact that it serves as a collateral security for you, so you can have access to credit. And mind you, we also noted that most of the rural women are not able to access credit because they don't have collateral, which is usually tied to land. And so they are not able to even expand their farmlands, their businesses. They are not even able to create jobs. So that is some of the fundamental problems that are linked to lack of land access. We've also seen that the laws, we have the Land Act and all of that. So the laws are good, the provisions in there are good, but there's some aspect of the provisions also which also requires, enforcement. And so, for example, typically we have been educating the traditional authorities such as the Tindanas, the landowners, the clan owners, the family heads, about the need to make land accessible for women for different purposes. But the myth is still there. They are not, open to, giving the lands. And so there's still a challenge. And part of our intervention had been to engage them, dialogue, and to also discuss the relevance and essence of making land accessible. And I'm happy to announce that in our interventions in Northeast and Upper, East and other districts, we've been able to secure lands for women. So, for example, in the Northeast region, for example, we have over 130 women who have been able to access about 29 acres of land. And this is from the Forestry Commission that have given them a concession from their reserved, lands. And these are lands that are fertile, again, to address the problem of giving them the land for them to be able to, enhance their economic, what's called status. Another thing also has been the lack of, capacity relative to how to manage and control, funds. Even when credits are available, you need to know how to manage the credit. Otherwise, if you are giving money for any other purposes, you're going to lose the money. And so we realize that most of the women lack the, financial literacy, even the financial attitude, the mindset to be able to determine that, okay, you know what, I want to do savings because I know it's going to help me. I want to put my money into some diversified, enterprises. So part of the intervention had been to address that fundamental lack of basic understanding. So financial literacy, trying to empower them to be able to make appropriate financial decisions so they can navigate the credit systems. Of course, we also have incidents such as, exploitative practice. I mean, women are mostly dependent on the informal credit sector. And in the credit sector, There's a lot of interest rate. The interest rates are high. They are also exposed to other exploitative practices. And so, again, they need to have that knowledge and mindset to be able to navigate that credit, ecosystem. And we have been working with them to give them that knowledge, to prepare them. And we also have, later on, we'll share evidence of how we've been able to use the cooperative model to put women into groups, build their capacity to manage themselves at groups. And so they are very focused on, documentations, having meeting records, opening and operating a bank accounts. And that has made them, credible to access some facilities. And so we have information about women that have been able to secure close to about 1.5 million, for example, from the Nara Rural Bank in the Northeast region. And it's helping them to expand their farmland activities. Some of them are also diversifying their activities. I'm
definitely interested in most of the things that Star Ghana is doing. When I come back to you, you mentioned that you've been engaging because of the patriarchal nature of this conversation and even the root cause of it. You've been engaging the leaders, traditional leaders as well. When I come back to you, my question then will be, do they understand the concept at all? Why women must be given that equitable opportunity to at least have access to the lands and resources when I come to you. But let's put some data to it. Dr. Gachi, often we say that women form a larger part of the population, a little above 50%, but still you'd realize that there's a disaggregation. It's not the numbers to the accessibility is not the same. Where will we definitely find the gap? Where particularly does the gap lie?
Sometimes when we are collecting data, you cannot create policies or solutions without data. Often,
kindly speak up fast.
Often we treat women as a homogeneous group. That's the issue we have. But we have to look at the intersectionality. Most of the women are also based with identities. They're either married, single, educated, non-educated. And this intersection with these identities also influences how they have access to this land and credit. For instance, in the rural setting, an educated lady might have easier access to credit facility because they have a way to circumnavigate the system in place as compared to an illiterate, or someone who is not educated. Or someone can be illiterate, but she's married, so the cultural norms might prevent her from. So sometimes when we are going in to collect the data, sometimes there has to be an intentionality in how we collect the data. You have to bear in mind these identities, that the fact that they're a woman does not mean that they face the same problems. So it has to be gender disaggregated data in collecting it. Then again, sometimes we are not aware of the time poverty. What is termed as time poverty? So what I mean by time poverty here is sometimes the women, they are the primary caregivers because of the cultural norms in place. So a woman and a man might have 24 hours, but in the rural community, she's the primary caregiver. She takes care of the children. She's going to the farm. She's going to fetch water. So the time to take care of the business, or sometimes when she's pregnant, if she has a shop, she has to shut it down. Coming back, recruit
all over
again. So you might have the same time. So you have to bear all these factors in mind when you're collecting the data. That's when you can accurately and adequately identify the gaps that exist. Because when you go, and of course, not only we have to, of course, genders have to be careful. Both men and women are heterogeneous in nature. So you have to bear in mind these identities that they could fall under and know how to collect the data.
Okay. Let me come to you, Dr. Nanama. So we often say that the inequality is quite deep-rooted, but they shouldn't take it from me. They should take it from you, Nanama, because Kolandev, you've done a lot of work. You've heard Raymond, you've as well heard Dr. Shelter as well. If you put this together and the work that you have done, what does it reveal about the deep-seated inequality among us in this country?
Thank you very much, and I'm very grateful for this question. Where is the inequality coming from? It is coming from lack of or limited technical capacity in understanding the land tenure conversation. And this is really critical because across the country, we have realized that some well-intentioned land tenure interventions have actually perpetuated existing inequalities. So let me try to unpack this land tenure conversation a bit. So when we talk about land access, and Raymond mentioned it, that women don't have access. If you travel to the northern region, women don't have access. Women do have access. They do have access, but they do not have security of tenure. Why do I say that? Because in Ghana, the law on land indicates that what we qualify as land is not just the physical surface of the ground. It's not a tangible soil you see. Rather, it is a quantum of a certain interests that you have in that physical surface. So you will have a piece of land, and that piece of land will carry a type of interest that is called leasehold interests, which is for a period, 50 years, 99 years, 20 years, and so on. It is a type of interest. We also have what we call the allodial interest. That is what the traditional leaders hold. It is a collective interest. So if you go to any traditional area, the people, that group, is known to be owners of that land, and that land is held with them forever and ever. We have others, like the customary tenancy and so on. So you have the large area of land in any traditional area, and according to the law, pockets of interests should exist in this land. And anytime I'm talking about interest in land, I use the illustration of shares of a company. If a particular company floats shares, the company is big, and individuals can be part of it by buying the shares. Some shares or some shareholders are able to acquire a large number of shares. So they have a big interest in the company. And because of that, they also exercise higher rights. Some may not be able to acquire a large amount of shares. And so their say in the company may be limited, yet they still have an interest. So it is the same with land. In our laws on land in Ghana, land is about the interest you have in the physical surface of the soil. So the allodial land, which is held by the customary leaders, is there.
Would you say it is the largest form of ownership or land interest, allodial interest?
Yes, yes, that is the largest. And that is the one that can be held in perpetuity.
Yeah.
And it is out of that other interests are derived, just like the example of the company. So out of the allodial interest, a leasehold interest can be generated, a customary tenancy can be generated, a customary freehold can be generated, and so on and so on. When you are an indigene of an area, I come from Ebri. So if the Ebri traditional area, we have land, I am a member of that group. So I can acquire what is called in the law the usufructuary interest in the land because I'm a member of that group. That is access. I can hold it for as long as I live. Because we are matrilineal, if I pass away, my children can take over that land. But how secure is that? And that is where the issue is, that we have different types of interest in land. But a lot of the times when we are having conversations about the land, we forget about the different types of interest that the law prescribes. And we consider land as one big homogeneous platform where everybody should fit himself or herself. But that is not how it is. What it is that we need to identify the different types of interests that the law prescribes. Which ones are women able to easily assess?
Which one, though, in your findings?
The usufructuary interest.
Okay.
The one they acquire because of being part of the land-owning group.
Is that a sustainable one?
Very sustainable.
Okay.
Very durable.
Okay.
Unfortunately, the laws, until recently when we had the Land Act, the laws did not recognize that as registrable.
Okay.
But now, through advocacy, it has become part of what is legally recognized and registrable.
I want to come to you. I'd like to understand how well we've done with that, because, of course, Act 1036, many have said, has a lot of challenges when it comes to the management of land tenure system and how it will benefit women. On the face of it, they say that it kind of puts women quite disadvantaged. Many also say that it can't be equal, it has to be equitable. What you'd say about that when I come to you. But let's talk about access to finance, because then the land can be there. In some families, all you need is 2 bottles of schnapps to go, and then it will be handed over to you. But in very reality, where the business sits in a very community where you want it in Accra. She's from Ibri. She can have that interest, that is factory interest in Ibri, but she wants the business here in Accra. Definitely, you need some access to money, and this is so. Let's go to Madam Juliana, because she at least can let us know how the financial system in helping entrepreneurs, especially women, does the financial laws or regulation put women in the forefront, or does it give them that equal opportunity to have access to credit or financing?
Thank you very much for the question. I will say yes. Yes, because the law is applicable to everyone in the country, and women, because of illiteracy, most people, because of the illiteracy rate, they are not able to get the requirements that the banks need, get the collateral that they need. They've spoken about land. Most women don't have access to land. They don't have access to resources that they can use as collateral to access the financial services that are available. They are not able to get the required documents for these properties that we are talking about, even if they have. Some have the land, as my colleague mentioned. Some have access to the land, but they are not documented. Documentation is limited, very weak documentation, and so they are not able to use it as collateral to access these funds. They are not able to keep records to be able to access the financial services available. You know, before you can access funds, the bank requires records of your business. And if the women are not able to keep records, they don't have the records, it will be difficult for them to access the financial services available. So to your question, I would say yes, it's equitable. We all have the right to get it. But then due to some weaknesses on the women part, we are not able to access it as the men do.
Okay. Yeah. I'll stay with you at the Entrepreneurship Development Directorate. You'd find out that your data actually suggests that 70% of small-owned businesses or small-scale businesses or medium-scale businesses are owned by women.
Yes.
And yet today we're gathered here discussing the challenges. I'm wondering, these 70%, how did they do it to get to that bigger proportion? What's happening to the 30? Does this mean that they're finding other undocumented ways to be able to have access and also start businesses?
Yes, that is true. Most women have businesses that are not formalized. They start on their own in a little or a small way. If someone has some few cedis, they can start a business with it, but they are not able to formalize it. That is why most women are in the informal sector. About 70% of them are in the informal sector. Ghana Enterprises Agency, we are there to support them to formalize these businesses. We have a whole directory that has been designated for women support. That is the Women Entrepreneurship Development Directorate. And our focus or our main objective of establishing that directorate is to help encourage more women into the productive and the service sector, formal, productive, and service sector, help them formalize their businesses so that they can have access to the opportunities, the resource opportunities in the country.
Okay. Okay, I'm just going to go to, first of all, let me say a big thank you to Star Ghana. Of course, some of these conversations can never be enough. And so when a company decides to want to take it personal and champion it. Of course, want to say a big thank you to Star Ghana, of course, Joy News as well. I'm just coming to you, Irene, just for one question before I come back. And we're going to take some questions and comments as well from you, our studio audience. But Irene, the cultural barriers, your experience at the BBC, your experience, of course, for a Ghanaian who've had this experience in the diaspora, the cultural, that disability, that disproportion, is it quite huge in that area of field that you had worked with? And coming back to Ghana today, from that walk from the car park to joining it to do the makeup all the way to be here today, how does this sit in the bigger picture, the bigger conversation we're having today?
Very much for the question, and it's been very insightful, so thank you very much. I would add my contribution.
You can use your mic.
I would add my contribution, and from my experience, which I always say is a lived experience. I see numerous barriers, actually. I know that you've talked a lot about structural, but I'll come from the perspective of structural. Let's say, I know you're talking about the informal sector, but even in the workplace, just in terms of who's in the workplace, in terms of access to opportunities, in terms of women feeling confident to access those opportunities, in terms of being accessible to development opportunities, and how we as women present ourselves are all barriers. When you talk about the cultural context, for a lot of women, there is a lot of other issues that we are handling and holding that we bring into the workplace as well. So if you add what you're talking about from a financial perspective, and then you add, if we get lucky and we have the opportunity to work in the workplace, we are holding so many cultural issues, confidence issues. When we actually have the opportunities to do the jobs, we're questioning our ability, even though we are experienced, or even though we've got the qualifications as well. And I think those are some of the challenges that we face. Some of the work that I have done to really help break those barriers has been, for example, informal women's groups where we can support each other, maybe share opportunities that come up, and then think about, okay, how can we coach each other to get those opportunities? Really educating our fellow men, colleagues as well, about some of those cultural contexts that you probably wouldn't notice because, for example, not all women, but some women have family responsibilities, parental responsibilities, sibling responsibilities, particularly in this part of the world, that isn't often discussed, and yet those barriers as well that we face. So some of those things that, like I said, I've done is the women's groups, also educate our fellow colleagues as well, and then give sponsorship. So sometimes some women have the opportunity to be sponsored or mentored and really look at some of those issues as well.
Okay, lived experiences are more relatable, right? They're very relatable because these people, they speak data.
Yes.
They speak so much data.
Yes.
Not all of us.
Not all of you, right?
Not all of us.
I can understand, especially because you also gave us that real life experience. You gave us where you live and how the long tenure system is over there. I'll come to you, Raymond, because you were just telling us how you've started engaging community leaders, but I can't help but still go back to the fundamental. If the allodial interest is the largest form of interest or ownership in Ghana, of course, then it's very masculine.
Yeah.
Now you're tackling the root cause by having to engage them. In your engagement personally, do they understand it? Do they understand the need why we must make it quite accessible for women?
I mean, good question, but I would say we are making progress. Progress because this has been very fundamental. The whole mindset, the whole myth around, why would women have access to land? For what purpose? The land must be owned by a man. If you need it, you can have restricted access for whatever, whether for agriculture on or off-farm activities. And so we have been looking at this from, both from the socio-economic perspective, part of our engagement really where we bring the landowners, the clan heads, the traditional heads, and then the chiefs, including the municipal assemblies, around the table to really discuss, what does it look like, when women have access to land or have, are able to own land, and for the kind of economic activities they would use the land for, who is going to benefit from those, opportunities. And so we take them through the cycle for them to really begin to question themselves, that it is really relevant, for women who are actually involved in economic activities. They do a lot of economic activities, farm activities, to have this access. And sometimes we discuss, so even if you want to sell the land to the women, for example, the women groups, what is going to be the price, are you thinking about the community? The land belongs to you. You can't farm on all the land, and so you have to do a public good. And so sometimes you can look at it from also the public good, whether it's your responsibility towards the community. And these are vulnerable women in a way, they don't have enough resources, they want to change and transform their lives. But the problem is about the access, and they don't have what it takes even to get credit, So through these conversations, the advocacy, the dialogue, and then of course the municipal assembly also bringing in the difficult, because they don't have the land. If they do, they're able to also offer some portions to the women. And then it makes sense, and then they're able to, give in. So for example, in the northern region, as I spoke to you,
would you say that's a high-risk area? I don't know, because most of your examples were quite
but what we are doing is that we don't just engage and then they offer the land. We also go through some form of agreement, and so we have agreement that gives them some maximum duration, so they don't have to go through a lot of mental stress about I have to pay rent on the land, and how do I get the money to pay the rent? And so these are freelance. Actually, they don't take anything from them. Freelance, and they farm. So, for example, in the case of the Forestry Commission, where they have allocated about 29 acres of land for these women, they are doing this under a system they call the Tanja system. So you do reforestation and then food crop production. And so you are planting trees and you are doing your own food crop production, the maize, the granola, the beans, and what have you. Over time, they move to a different area. And these are fertile lands.
Okay.
And that is what the women said, we want these lands to farm. And they are ready, And so engagement, constant dialogue.
Which I'm happy we're still doing. Dr. Shelter, so I like the numbers.
Yeah.
What really separates women entrepreneurs who are thriving from women entrepreneurs who are not thriving? What, in your research and in your findings, what's been separating them? And I ask this because many say that doing business with women is considered as a high risk. When I come to you, I want to know whether it's a myth, whether it is true or not. But let me stay with Dr. Shelter. What separates them? What's the data showing?
It's not necessarily what separates them. Remember I mentioned about how we collect data and the lens we use. When you use "they're thriving," what do we mean by "they're thriving"? Is it that they fit the stereotypical definition of what a thriving business is?
Okay.
Often when we are approaching this topic, we see the women as victims. We see them as victims to structures in place. We don't seem to acknowledge their agency, because I remember you asked the question about, is it that the others are having informal businesses? Because regardless of the constraints in place, they found a way to go about them. Some of them have also found a way to influence the structures. So I wouldn't use the word thriving, but some of them are doing what they can. What we can probably do is see what measure they have put in place that is helping them and build upon them through the policies.
Okay.
But then again, there's also the cultural context. Let me just chip that in. Because, for instance, in the northern parts of the country, it's strictly different when it comes to probably places like the eastern. Because the northern is strictly patriarchal. So some don't have access to it. And then there's also the intergenerational differences, dynamics in place. So we should be very careful about the wedding, because sometimes they don't fit what we believe to be the concept of a business. So maybe the 30% are equally doing well for themselves, but we need to know how we frame this kind of things and the lens we use.
So then I'll go to Nanama. Nanama, how do we frame this? because, of course, you'd see that if you look at the data that I pulled out from the Ghana Entrepreneurship Authority, they would say that about 70% of these small business owners are women, which suggests that some women are doing quite well, impressively well. Some women as well aren't doing well, right? Yeah. How best should we use the word and the terminologies, which then will shape the conversation? And you also introduced Act 1036. What are some of the challenges so far women are facing?
So usually when we are doing conversations about women and businesses, I tend to agree with her that it's not so much about the definition as it is about the narrative of the experience that women are having. Because if we are fixated on the terminologies, it might even be difficult to find a terminology that fits different categories of women. So what is the qualitative narrative of what the experiences are, and what approaches, what strategies will work to address the challenges they have? So that is the way we approach it. And in terms of that, I would say that women, as we know, culturally are expected to be versatile, right? They are expected to be multitasking. They are supposed to be good at that. They are supposed to be homemakers. And so even if there is no steady income for the family, the woman is expected to find her own way of making sure that the family lives. And so the woman has no option than to make sure that something happens. What will we call that? Thriving? Probably not. But it is going on. The narrative around it is important to describe very well, and the stories in those narratives are important for shaping policies, because it is within that we will have all the good policy directives and strategies, like what the Ghana Enterprise Agency would need to be able to implement. In terms of the Act 1036, honestly, from my point of view as a land professional and an advocate for women's land and property rights, I would say that there are significant progress or progressive provisions in the Act. Significant. I mentioned earlier that previously, customary land rights were not recognized in the law. So if a woman held any customary land rights, like the customary tenancy, like the usufructuary interests, it's not recognized. It didn't come up in law. But today, in the Land Act, it is classified as part of the 6 types of interest in land. So if a woman today has obtained a usufructuary interest in her community, that kind of rights is registrable.
Right.
It can be documented. If a woman has a customary tenancy, and the customary tenancy are the sharing agreements, a bunu ebusa type of arrangements. You know, if you go to many of the traditional areas, that is a type of interest that women are able to obtain because they work and they share. Under the 1036, it is recognized, it is registrable.
Okay.
What the challenge is with the current situation, even after having such progressive sections in the Land Act, is that where do I go to get it documented? Where do I go to get it registered? We know that the institutional setup for land recordation and registration in Ghana is with the Lands Commission, and they are all located in the regional capitals. I'm a poor farmer, I'm a woman in a rural community in Ghana. I've obtained a usufructuary interest, I've acquired a customary tenancy. Where do I get the documentation? So in the Land Act, we also have provisions for establishing customary land secretariats in every traditional area. In fact, initially the bill was that traditional land-owning groups may, but we pushed to say it should be shall, that every land-owning group shall establish a customary land secretariat. Why is this significant? It is significant because what it meant was that every area north, south, east, and west, where we have these customary land owning groups. We are supposed to have a customary land secretariat, which is more like a decentralized version of the Lands Commission, but simplified so that the kind of documentation they do there will be akin to what the practices are in the traditional area. If we do that, the woman gets her usufructuary interest documented. It gets recognition. It gets respected. It gets documented. If we are able to give recognition of such recordation at the customary land secretariats up to the national level, that woman can send that document to a bank, to a facility, and it has to be recognized. But that is where the issues are. So we have the Land Act. We have some customary land secretariats across the country. So far, we have a little over 100, yet we have over 600 traditional areas in Ghana.
That's woefully inadequate. That's one of the things you say is the challenge. And when I come to you, of course, some women have been successful. At the Ghana Enterprises Agency, of course, some women work in and out. What you're doing to help these women and as well pull those who, and learning from Dr. Shelter, those who are trying to do their best as well, get to the par of those who have done it successfully. And what would you say mirrors a successful woman entrepreneur? What does the GEA look at as a successful or a thriving? I've got to use that word until I get off it shortly. What would you say that is the mirror, or what would you envisage as a thriving entrepreneur, woman entrepreneur, when I come to you? But before I take that question, I just want to let you to prepare your questions, your comments. Of course, I want you to be part of the conversation. And you, my students, I want you to grow up knowing these that some of us didn't know first. So ask all of the questions. She's been throwing some very legal jargons. I expect you to ask all the questions that you don't understand. Irene, when I come to you, women, of course, must have certain traits. When I enter that boardroom and I want to negotiate to have that land for my business, when I want to have conversations that will give me an opportunity, what kind of traits shall I carry along from home when I carry my handbag? I'm not just carrying my handbag. Or what are some of the traits that I'll need when I come to you? So I'll take the answer from Juliana, and then I'll come to you for your questions and your comments as well. Okay, Juliana.
Thank you very much. So when we talk of a thriving business, woman business, we don't usually look at the quantum of money the person is doing business with. We look at the formalization. Has the woman business been formalized? Does she have all the requisite documentation for the business? Is the person able to assess the support that's available for the person to grow the business? If you have the formalizations, if you are able to certify your product, register with ORC, and all the certifications you are talking about, we see the business as thriving.
Okay.
So it's not about the quantum, the amount of money the person is doing business with.
Okay.
So Ghana Enterprises Agency, we are doing a lot to push a lot of women from the micro and the small sectors who are not formalized into the medium and the large enterprises that are formalized. We have a lot of programs, activities, interventions to push these women from that level to the medium and the large scale levels. We have the Business in the Box project that we have partnered with MasterCard Foundation, giving training to, it's both men and women, but we consider women, about 70% of the beneficiaries are supposed to be women. And so we are giving them trainings, we are giving them scale-up activities or interventions to be able to scale the businesses they have. Those who don't have will get the skills to also enter into it. They are helping them with the business formalization, that's the registrar, ORC, registration with ORC, registration or certification with FDA, and so on, to get their products there.
As a woman, what do you need? Just the idea, and then walk into the office?
Yes, we just walk into a GEA, any GEA office. We have about 228 offices in the various municipalities and the district assemblies.
298.
228.
Okay.
228
Okay.
offices. We have the business advisory centers. We have the business resource centers who are there to support these women to get the support that they need to get there. Yes.
No, I see you're shaking your head. I was asking, what do you need? Do you just have to be a woman and have that dream, have that vision, and then you walk to one of these 228 offices? Is that enough?
That should have been the case. But we all know the realities are different. Because, I mean, it's not like that. I have spoken with a number of, and I know GA is not a bank, but I've interacted with a number of banks and insurance companies through my work. And I tell them, do you really want women to be part of your business?
What triggers this question?
Take the application form. So things like you need to produce your house number. You need
Electricity bill, water bill, 10 passport pictures.
Whose name
The
is
size of your shoe.
whose name is on the electricity bill? Whose name is on
Could be a
the?
landlord or your husband.
You get it. So the point is that we make the requirements very formalized, and that restricts women, because women, by the nature of our activity, our socialization, we are very much thriving in informal spaces. And what do I mean by, we should not be structured. So you walk into a bank. In fact, in some banks, I told them that even for me as a professional woman, I will not find this a friendly space. In
But
one
reality,
bank.
sorry to
Yeah.
catch you, but in reality, these are businesses that must also be sustainable. They must exist. If they don't formalize the collection of the data,
I
what
agree.
can they do?
I agree.
Okay.
Sorry.
Shall
Let
we
me just put in I agree. But you see, what I'm saying is the process of formalization should be gender sensitive.
Okay.
Yeah, it's about being context specific. It should
Exactly.
be grounded in lived experiences. That's what I was talking about. It boils down to the data. I know you said that we don't just deal with data, it's the application of the data. And how do you apply the data?
Yeah.
Using the right lens. Often we have a narrowed lens.
Yeah.
So when you have a narrowed lens, you bring one size fits all, or the women need access to banks. So let's put the banks in the rural areas. It's not just about that. Women need to be part of the decision making. So we need to elect one woman leader. It's not about that. She's a leader. And so have you put the structural measures in place that her voice will be heard?
Yeah.
That's where the advocacy also comes in, because you see she mentioned that they changed the word from may to shall.
Right.
We need to, and we might not see those things as structures, but it's indeed a structure. These are, the structures is not necessarily about the banks, it's not about the schools. Structures are sometimes the informal things that we might not even take into consideration. So advocacy, being particular about the wording of the law, being particular about creating men's engagement. Because often we see, unfortunately, in these conversations, we see them to be, what's the word? to the negative aspect of it, but we don't realize that they are also sometimes the victim of the patriarchal system.
Right.
And sometimes too, in as much as we highlight their privileges with the patriarchal system, we don't realize that they also have some negative bits in there. So we have to approach in a holistic manner. So yes, we've created a GEA, which is perfect. We can walk in to access facilities, which is great. But is it gender sensitive? And not just gender, context specific. So maybe in the eastern region, I work in the eastern and the northern region. The system is different. The matrilineal system sort of gives the women an edge, not totally, but when you compare it, give them a little bit of edge over those in the north. So if you use your experience in the north to tackle those in the south, you might be found wanting. If you use the same data analysis with the north and the south, you'll be totally, and yeah.
It's good that you're, but I mean, I'm going to come to you shortly. And of course, if you have your questions as well, I'll come to you. But Jelena, I appreciate the concern. So from this 228 offices, which I see you're seeking to decentralize. If I went to the north, am I likely to see the behavioral pattern of this office mimicking that of the one in the Volta region? Hold on to you when I come to you for that response as to whether what they have said, the concerns that they have raised, if you appreciate it as well, and how different would this decentralization look like for you? But I'm just going to go to my audience now. Irene, hang it there for me. Oh yeah, you have a question? Nice. Tell me your name. Do you have the microphone? Good.
My name is Tess Alute.
Come again.
Tess Alute.
Tess Alote.
Yes.
Okay, is Tess a long name or an abbreviation or an AK or?
Short for Thessalonians.
Thessalonians?
Yes.
Wow. Your mother and your father were very Okay, Tess, tell me, ask your question.
At what age can I own a land?
Yay! Good question. Good question. Is that all?
Yeah.
It's a very big question. We must find an answer for you. Okay. Salam, I have to come to you then.
18 years. In Ghana, the age of adulthood is 18. So 18 years.
That's if you want to get it yourself. But if you want your mother to get it for you, then they can get it and hold it in trust.
For you.
For
Yes.
you.
Yes.
So by now, maybe mommy and daddy, they've got a land for you, but it's just that you can't walk there and say, this is my land. Well, you can, but you can't start working on the land now. Is that fair? How old are you now? 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 17. I'll be counting with you, okay? Okay. Do you have any more questions?
Yeah,
Okay.
I
Please
do.
tell me your name.
My name is Gifty Adoboa
Hi, Gifty.
from the University of Ghana.
Right.
Okay, so my question is actually in two folds. One to Auntie here, and then to
Juliana. Okay.
Yes. So it's about the usufructuary interest. I am really interested because I grew up with only my mom without a father. And sometimes acquiring a land becomes very difficult for her, even with a small-scale farming. It was usually the one you mentioned. You work on it, you get the
Customary
youths, and then
tenancy.
we share, sometimes in three. We take two, they take one. Or sometimes they even take two. My mom will have just one. It was really difficult. So I wanted to know that with the fact that if a certain traditional or customary traditional alludial owners, so far as you are a woman and you are from the matrilineal, people who practice the matrilineal inheritance system, you could have one as long as you live, and even when you die, your children can take over. I wanted to ask if it applies everywhere in Ghana, because I also know of instances where once you, the mother, dies, the surviving family can take it away from the children, and then they let the children become really, really stranded. And sometimes it is based on their family's discretion. If you are of good character, they can let you continue. If not, they take it from you. Even with houses, then you become really stranded. So I wanted to know if it applies everywhere, so that from here I'll know how to plan with my mom. Now, the second question has to do with the fact that I'm a small business owner. I'm a wig maker, like what I am wearing. So I'm really interested if I can just walk to GEA and then apply and get something to support my business. But then I don't have a house. Possibly I don't pay utilities with my own name. I actually started on campus, and I have a lot of people who are just like me. And so if the applications forms are so sophisticated like this, then it becomes very difficult for me as a young woman to just walk in and get something. So I'll plead with you to, they should be coming down for the young people so that we can all, apply and
Spoken to all
thrive.
young people. I like to think
Thank you.
Juliana is hearing. But please pass the microphone.
Okay.
I'm noting them, but I hope you're able to remember the questions.
All right. So I would like to thank panelists for the insight so far. But I want to inquire from Madam
Please tell me your
Juliana.
name first.
Sorry, my name is Anita Ukwasari. I work with Star Ghana Foundation.
Nice, Anita.
Yes. So I want to find out from Madam Juliana. She mentioned that there's a women entrepreneurship directorate at the GEA. So I want to find out how this unit or directorate is really decentralized, such that when we get to the BAC officers at the MMDA level, we can have access to the services that are being provided by this directorate. And the second question, I know that the GEA is also supposed to facilitate access to funds or financial services for businesses. So I want to find out how well this role is being delivered. Thank
Okay.
you.
Any more questions? Of course, please. Okay, please pass the mic to. You have a question?
Yeah.
Okay, Susie, tell me your name.
My name is Yami Uswansan.
Okay.
As young as I am, can I walk to my financial institution and get free advice on how to own a land and stress and on how to own a land?
And something else? You sure? You sure? Or it's just the land you want to without stress? Okay, I don't have an answer. They have the answer for you. Please pass the microphone to Daddy behind you. Okay.
So my question is, we're talking about women. I just want to find out, is it persons with disability inclusive? Because I know for Ghana Enterprises Agency, there's a quota for persons with disability. And then I know there's a high risk. They say there's a high risk for women businesses. So I want to know if there's data showing that the repayments from the angle of women is higher than men.
Okay, very good questions. Thank you so much. Yes.
Yeah, so thank you so much. GE, I think formally it is NBSSI, am I right?
Yes, please.
Yeah. So you were supporting, I think with the support from MasterCard Foundation, we're targeting about 500,000 or more women to be trained and to add value to their product. And most of them are, not most, but quite a number are farmers, especially in the northern part and all those things. And now they are not owning the land that they are working on. And now you want to support them with capital or somebody supporting you. How dependable would that arrangement be? Like somebody later on something is happening, maybe your product or climate change affected this and you are not paying the rent or whatever, and now they come in and say they are taking actions. If it's your land, they will say, oh, I want to take it back because you are not. But now they don't own the land, and then they are investing in it, and something happens. What happens? How is there any arrangement from your end to support further so that they don't lose their livelihood? Secondly, and I'm saying this thing because I was involved in the training, one of the training recently through one of the organizations, consulting firm also in the OT region. And you can see, especially when there is some kind of conflict somewhere, and now you can't even go to the farm. Meanwhile, everything depends on the land. Yeah, everything is there. And now, so how do they, I'm just looking at how can this difficulty be solved with your organization?
Okay.
And the last thing on the same thing, that you have the GA office, the BAC office in the district. I think you don't have it in every district, but most districts. And there's another organization, is the resource something office. And it's like one place, I don't want to mention names, but
please use the microphone for me.
There's that kind of conflict, that they are not working together, and I experience this on the field. So I don't know whether you are aware of it and how can we do, because sometimes when these things are happening, they say when elephants are fighting, is there this thing that will suffer. And the women are going to suffer in all these things. So please, it's good that this thing is coming up, and I want to raise this issue, and then we'll see how we can address it so that the women, and now you mentioned the people with disability. You have some, they are included, but I don't know, maybe they can feel, but I'm not feeling how they are getting that knowledge, and then they are going to, who is going to even help them to acquire spaces that they can do their business.
Basically, inclusivity of the persons with disability.
Yes.
The
Yes.
GEA has. Let me just take the final question from my lady here.
And I want to thank Star Ghana Foundation, because as someone from the Northern region and just getting to know what you've been doing for my people, I'm really grateful. And I've come to realize women can't really acquire land in my region. And these are very hardworking women that are ready to farm, because most of the women there, they are actually into farming. But then sometimes they have to wait for the men. When they are done farming, then they take over the land and all of that. And I think what can help is including the men in this decisions making. And when you get in there, put yourself as one of them. Go in as a member. And when you talk, I think they get to listen to you. And also to GEA. I think most of the processes you've put in down, it wouldn't help my rural women out there and also the vulnerable women. So I think you need to consider them as well when it comes to some of these businesses. Thank you.
Lisa, thank you. Maybe I'll go for some answers then quickly, or I think let me take some answers, then I'll come to you for the last two. Thank you so much for understanding. But Juliana, most of the questions, there seems to be a certain consensus about their processes, how easy or difficult it is. But let me come to you, and our lady here wants to know whether she can walk into any facility for free and stress-free advice on land acquisition. How old are you again? You're 11. You're both 11.
So that's the big problem with our land system in Ghana here. There is no access to public information. So the Lands Commission is the main state agency responsible for land administration, registration, documentation, and all those things. Unfortunately, there is no publicly declared office within the Lands Commission where you can go for such education. But that is why some of us, as non-governmental organizations, we are also doing our best to create awareness, to educate. So if you go to our website, the COLANDEF website, there's a lot of educational materials you will find on land. And probably we will talk after this so that you can also have my contact. I can give you a lot more awareness raising on this. But that is the situation. Unfortunately, we don't have public access to information.
But luckily, Auntie Nanama is here to guide you and help you, right? So my lady in front here asked a very important question.
Yeah.
It borders on where customary law meets with the common law, where we now have to draw in equity, right? And how, of course, because the Constitution recognizes customary law, but at what point does it now either overlap?
Yes. So I saw her question to be also about the applicability of the law, customary law, to different traditional areas. So yes, customary law interfaces with common law. As far as land is concerned, it interfaces with the common law. I mean, the statutory laws at the point where we have to define the different types of interest in land. So that is why you cannot do any leasehold interest beyond 99 years, for example, even though the land is customary land. That is why you can only do registration in the Lands Commission and Customary Land Secretariats. That is where it meets. So customary lands are customary lands managed by traditional leaders, but they need to work within the framework of the law to define what the rules are in terms of the land uses. So you have your land, but it's the state that determines what you can use on the land in this area, and so on. But when it comes to what you asked, the usufructuary interest in a matrilineal society that grants the woman and her descendants that continuous use, benefits, and, I mean, control over that parcel of land. Does it apply? Yes, it does. So long as it is a matrilineal society, it does. Is it challenging in some areas? Yes. And that is why from the beginning, I was saying that in our work at COLANDEF, we focus not only on the land access, because access is just one wee bit. It's just the tip of the iceberg. Many women are able to get access, even if it is access after the husband has finished farming and the woman, it is still access. But we are talking about security of tenure. We are talking about respect and recognition of that access you have. And that is where women face a lot of the challenges. So within the land sector, when we talk about land tenure security, what we mean is that your access and the rights you have obtained from that access is guaranteed for the entire period that is agreed for you to have that access. And that's our system should be such that even when that access is challenged at some point, there has to be mechanisms to protect you and defend you.
Which are definitely available. Mechanisms very available. I can't wait to hear from Irene, but Juliana, most of the questions came to you. Let's hear from you. Persons with disability, decentralization, which is already a conversation on the floor we're having, many other, and sustainability of the projects that you have introduced.
All right, thank you very much. For the first question, my lady from University of Ghana. So young people in business or young entrepreneurs, GEA is there for you. Our services are there to support whatever business that you have initiated, you have started, so that it will grow to become big. As I mentioned, our business advisory centers and the business resource centers in the various municipalities, our officers are there to support whatever services that you require. If you walk into any of our office, mention what your need is. If it's business registration, they will assist you. You might not need to walk to ORC yourself to do the registration. Our officers are there to assist you. Even with people who let me say, the literacy rate is low, they are there to support them, do all the documentation for them to get their certification. Not that alone, the training services that we have, our interventions, they are there to give you all the literacy, literate, how do I put it? All the knowledge you need to manage your business very well. So we organize trainings on business development services to help you grow your business. So young people, please register with Ghana Enterprises Agency, and we are there to support you.
And the persons with disability?
The persons with disability are not left out. In fact, Ghana Enterprises Agency, our services are inclusive. Women, persons with disability are considered so much. Okay. When you look at the grant opportunities that we had, we set aside for women and for persons with disability. Initially, when we started, it was for all MSMEs. And at a point, we realized a lot of more men are getting the chance. Mm-hmm. And so we had to design for women alone and then persons with disability alone. And so for those two grants, only women could access the Women Fund, and then only persons with disability could access the one for the PWDs. Okay, that's
yes. Good to know. That was also concerned about some of the policies or some of the rollouts that involves two agencies, especially governmental agencies, and conflicts that may arise, which of course we, the women, will suffer because when two agencies are up in arms together.
I noted that question so much. Let me mention that the two officers that Uncle mentioned, they all belong to Ghana Enterprises Agency. Okay. At the district level, in my submission, I've been mentioning BAC, BRC. At the district levels, we have the business advisory centers and we have the business resource centers. Okay. Yes, they are all under Ghana Enterprises Agency. So there isn't any sort of conflict between them.
These are siblings fighting?
No, they don't fight. Okay. They all know what they are supposed to do. And in fact, where we have the business resource centers, the business advisory center doesn't operate. Okay. Where we have the business advisory center, we don't have the business resource centers. The business resource centers are about 30-something. Okay. They are not in all the districts, all the regions.
Are you working and hopefully to get it to all the regions or districts at least?
Yes, yes. I can't sit here and say yes, but then by all means, we will consider. Okay, okay. So the services that they are given at the business advisory centers, they are the same given at the resource centers. The resource centers are even more higher because the concept was to have all these regulatory institutions stationed at the resource center. It was supposed to be, or it's supposed to be one-stop shop for business, where you enter and you can get access to all the services that you need in the MSME ecosystem.
I could go on and on, but unfortunately my time is nearly up. I have just 4 minutes, and Irene, I want to hear from you definitely because we're resources that are constrained, limited resources, limited institutions that can help us achieve this. But how can women, when they get on the negotiating table, what tools should they wield so that at least, if the land is just one, It will not go to the man. It will go to the
Thank you very much. I was thinking about your question before you came to me, and I'll say a few things about the traits, and then I'm sure you'll all be nodding. When we talk about resilience, self-awareness, we talk about self-confidence, strong communication skills, being decisive, problem-solving, emotional intelligence, and being supportive. And I feel like I've just described a woman. So these skills are absolutely within us. One of the things that I have found is, how do we apply those skills and in which setting? And often, when do we understand which setting we are in? Because it's interesting that we can talk about self-confidence, and yet I meet, I'm sure like you do, lots of women who all of a sudden the self-confidence has just disappeared. Because we're in a boardroom, because we're doing a negotiation. But the reality is, one of the things that I always say, how I started with my lived experience is, you fake it till you make it. You know, only you know what is going on underneath. But whilst you're in the room and you're having that conversation, you're bringing that self-confidence. So when we talk about those traits, I just would urge us as women to really think about, you actually have all of those traits actually from within. So the challenge now is, how does that show up in your most difficult moments? What do you need to do to dig deep, to find what it will take, knowing that this is going to be a difficult conversation? How do I therefore structure the conversation? What do I need to get across? What do I need to make sure I actually do? And if somebody opposes and push back, should I now think about that before I enter the room? If you often find when you're in those scenarios, you'll find women that are really successful, you'll find that they persevere. The resilience comes through, the self-confidence comes through. So these are some of the examples that I think will be really useful that I have seen, I've used myself, and also in all of the panelists here today as well.
Thank you so much, Irene. I think we must do a part 2 of this, because I've got to apologize to those of you who are unable to take your questions, but the panelists will be here. It will be a long walk to their cars. You can ask the questions and then get your answers. I'm going to have to give just 10 seconds to both of you, because I see that Nanama and Juliana have had a good time. But Dr. Shelter and, of course, Raymond, whom this project, of course, sits on his lap, just a few seconds to wrap it all up for us. And then I'm going to push for a part 2 of this conversation.
Great.
Okay, Dr. Shelter, please go.
I think under the capacity of academia, it boils down to data, but we shouldn't be distanced from the data. We should use unique lenses, and often when we are talking about data, we think of gender as an afterthought.
Okay.
Or we are collecting data, let's talk about the women and the children. No, we have to integrate it with it. And then again, we should be the multisectoral collaboration. Academia, advocacy, the foundations, we need to share what we know, our knowledge across board. And then again, being context specific, I am really a strong advocate for that. We should be gender sensitive and context specific, because it doesn't apply to the whole of Ghana.
Totally agree. Feminist jurisprudence says that even for the women, there's still equity among the women.
Exactly.
So it can be this.
So,
exactly. Remember, I'll give you a few seconds.
Thank you. So I think when it comes to access to credit, from a practice perspective, would advocate that we should move away from the traditional collateral system to a more informal, like looking at the social capital or the community standing. Because in the example that I shared, the communities, the women that were able to access close to 1.5 million are communities that use more like the farmlands as collateral, and of course their village savings and loans records. Those were the basic, requirement. And so it's something that we need to look at it. And again, also we should look at, in terms of the act, how we can enforce the non-discrimination, provision. Because still in some of the northern areas, where the law says that, well, a woman would not have to come with a man to be able to, acquire a land and things like that. Mentally, they are still, resistant. So we need to find a way to enforce that. and eventually also to be able to also educate and empower our women so that they can demand the rights under the law, but also to be able to work with the Customary Land Secretariat, which I think is also under-resourced. So they also need to be resourced so that they can help women to document, register the lands, and of course, challenge any, as it were, they should challenge other things that are not really.
Okay, let me just take a few seconds from you, Nana as well, just in wrapping.
Okay, so I would say that education, awareness raising is very important, because from our experience across the country, when a woman is aware, when a woman is educated in her own individual capacity, she's able to take the steps needed to access land and to secure security of tenure for the land they have access. So we want to enhance the opportunities for information dissemination, education, and awareness raising, and the institutional capacity of our traditional leaders to understand that customary land governance is about land-owning groups and not just individuals.
I definitely promise. So the person who champions this sector is my namesake, MFA. I'm going to negotiate with her, so we'll have a part 2 of this. But thank you so much. And of course, Star Ghana will be running to you. We must have a part 2 of this. But a big thank you to you, Star Ghana. A big thank you to you, of course, Raymond Dansu, Portfolio Manager, Rights to Services, Star Ghana Foundation. And of course, Dr. Shelta Gachi, researcher, the Center for Gender Studies and Advocacy, University of Ghana. Of course, Nana Mahira, founder and executive, Colanda. Of course, you want to know more, you should go on the website. And Juliana Bema Edubofo, she heads the Women Entrepreneurship Development as well. And I was joined by Irene Asari, who gave us some traits that you want to carry along in your negotiation skills. Of course, everyone who made it to the studio, Madam Tess, my friend as well, Thessalonia, of course, I remember the name, Adiza, Anita, you, of course, you and your mother will be looking out for that pushback. But you, of course, who joined us today on both the Joy News channel and Joy Prime. My name is Emefa Akustia Aditi, and for Women to Rise, of course, we must break the barriers and carry everybody along. Thank you for joining us today.